Welcome to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we build products in public. Each episode gives you an honest peek into our lives as we share our struggles, our wins, and everything in between. I'm Benedict, and I'm feeling content.
And I'm Benedicte. Today is November 26th. This is episode number 213. And I am feeling tired.
Okay. What happened? What made you feel tired?
I mean, we just been low-key, as the kids say, sick all month. And then it was the big Christmas market. I managed to make 135 cookies, not 200 cookies.
Woohoo!
But it turned out I had mistaken, or I had misunderstood, because we were going to make little bags that was going to be sold for approximately like €5, 5 USD to 12 euros / USD, and have like 10 to 20 things in them. And I'm like, 10 cookies are more than like €5. So I put 3 cookies in each bag, and it got to be like 40 bags. 45 bags. 40
Okay.
bags. Anyway, 135 cookies. So I was really happy about that, but nobody wanted my cookies. So they ended up being sold on like sale. But I thought they were really good, but they didn't give out like tasters. So they just were like laying there in the bag. And I think they were like a little bit different and not that Christmassy. So I made all these cookies, and then like on the end of Sunday, they just had to sell them on like sale. But well, now I know. But yeah, we've been low-key sick, and then it was the Christmas market this weekend, and then on Monday, I guess like Sunday night, my daughter was like there was nothing left in her, and then she woke up on Monday like with a fever and just like super sick. But I'm hoping this is gonna be our, now we've finally gotten not low-key sick, and like this is it. But who knows?
Yeah, I feel like I'm sort of somewhere in between sick and not sick for the last couple of days. I tested myself for COVID earlier today just because it was so weird, but it wasn't COVID, so whatever's going on is annoying.
It's just the fall. I don't know, this fall. Anyway, we shouldn't complain too much about being sick, but I'm tired, so I was a little tired. But it is what it is. It's just gotta work. But we had to skip Lillian's Christmas circus recital yesterday, and that made me really sad because I've been looking forward. She's been doing circus this semester, and they like walk on these like huge like balls, and they hang from things around the ceiling, and they were gonna show off a little bit yesterday, but I mean, she was like, I don't want to go.
Yeah. Well, at least she didn't want to go as well, so it's not.
Yeah,
like
no, she fell asleep even before it was gonna happen, and like slept on the couch, and then woke up, watched a little bit more of television, and fell asleep again. So I think it was a good decision on her part. But I was really sad. But
yeah,
we'll get another chance.
There will hopefully be another one next year, right?
Yeah, and then this was just a small one, but this end of May they're gonna so after Christmas they are gonna create and then perform their own show at a theater festival at the end of May. So that's like the big thing. Yeah. So.
Yeah, then you definitely show up for that one, right?
Yes, and also it's the spring, so it's all gonna be fine. Hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
I'm just sorry for any listener who's like in a warmer climate. We're up here in like northern, I guess Germany's not northern Europe, but it's like mid, I guess. I'm just complaining about our fall where like everybody is sick. It's dark, the D vitamins are going down. It's every time I have a meeting with Outseta at night and they can see my windows because it depends a little bit on where I'm sitting. They're like, how early does it get dark there? And I was like, it's been dark for like 3 hours now.
Yeah, I think sun's setting in an hour around here, but
yeah,
the sun's actually out. I'm like it was raining this morning, and now it's actually.
You gotta run out there, and
I have to stop everything.
Right. So anyway, but you're content. That is a boring but okay feeling.
Thanks. That's a boring feeling. No, actually, I'm actually quite fine. Like I had a longer weekend. I took Friday and Monday off, so properly relaxed, I guess. Well, by now I'm already catching up on calls. Like usually I have most of my calls with the team and everything on Monday, and Tuesday is for like a mastermind and just recording. And now I'm doing all of those calls today.
Oh,
or at least try to.
yep.
So it's a little bit of a mess, but other than that, had a nice relaxing weekend. My parents visited. We did some, I don't know, I want to say sightseeing, but it's not actually the thing. Like we just went out, like exploring the neighborhoods and stuff like that, and had some nice dinner and stuff like that. So it was pretty nice and chill. Then yesterday, used the day to get some, you want to say early Christmas shopping done, but I guess it's not that early by this point. But yeah, before
Well,
yesterday,
I
we had no
haven't done
clue about any
any,
Christmas
so
gifts, and now we checked off a couple, even though we didn't plan to. So that was kind of nice. A couple of things that I don't have to worry about anymore. Um, so yeah, overall, doing fine. Like nothing too bad happening other than like feeling a little bit sick on and off. But I guess that's just autumn.
I guess we're just back to like feeling fall. Next fall,
Feeling
I'm just
fall. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
gonna be my go-to feeling for the whole fall.
yeah.
But yeah. But I did get some stuff done last week. I finally kind of got a, I don't know, when something just like comes together. I've been looking at how to do Xano and Outseta integration. Um and we have some kind of like integrations to create the data base structure that is needed in Xano, or Xano made that a long time ago. Xano is a database backend low
Hmm.
code service, but you have to exchange. So you log in without Outseta, and then you have to authenticate to Xano. So to do that, the concept is that you exchange the Outseta token for a Xano token. So you send the Outseta
Hmm.
token to Xano. You validate and do all that kind of stuff on Xano, and if it's a good token, you get a Xano token back that you can then use to authenticate with Xano in the same way as if you were using Xano authentication. So that's pretty cool. But people were kind of skipping that part of the documentation, partly because the documentation wasn't that good, and partly because a lot of the people using this don't really understand that part, or are not like really haven't been used to making API calls and stuff like that. So I made a little utility script that helps you to exchange. You kind of initialize the Xano or the XO client. And I'm the only one who think it's fun. Well, our designer, he understood, and he was like, cute, because it's XOXO, hugs and kisses, hugs and kisses. Anyway, back to the thing. So you initiate an XO client, and then that will just kind of do this thing behind the scenes for you, and then give you an event when it's done. So you can then head off and do whatever you want to do with Xano, and then the correct token is already set on the Xano client. So that is working pretty well. And I got it pushed to NPM registry that then makes it available on JS Deliver that we talked about before. Shouldn't
Hmm.
use somebody else's distribution system, but I've been looking into it, and like Xano's SDK is distributed as a JS Deliver link, and like almost everything in the Webflow community that I found is distributed as a JS Deliver link. So we're going to do that for now. Because if the Xano client goes down, it doesn't matter if our
Right.
URL is up.
I mean,
And
if everyone's using it and it blows up, then it's not like, yeah, then it's very clear that it's affecting everyone, not just you, right? So
yeah, and it
that
also
makes
doesn't
sense for me.
help that we are working, because if it's kind of
Yeah, it's
contingent
broken
on
anyways,
the
right?
on the Xano client to be there, and if it's not there, then yeah.
Right.
So that's been a little bit of an interesting exploration. It's pretty simple right now because I haven't put any automations on GitHub yet, but I've done that before for like Gatsby plugins. So I'll have like a nice little semantic release bot going, and then push that up to NPM, and then everything kind of is taken care of me for. Well, see,
For
I am
you,
sick. For me, for you. Everything automatically just kind of
right?
gets distributed. But what I want to do is then to also make it possible to use it as a proper NPM package, because that's what you can do with a Xano client. You can
Hmm.
either put a link, like a script, just put the external script in your head and then use it, or you can like do an install it with npm install and then do an import Xano client. And I want to do the same thing. And this is where I'm like, I've used these things, but I am not super solid on the different like ESM
Right.
and CommonJS and all of the different ways. And I found some like conversations on Blue Sky randomly about this the other day, and like people are saying like, yes, it's a mess.
Yes. Yes,
And
it's a
people,
mess. Yes.
it's a mess, and people use it in so many different ways. So I'll have to at least define, what I want to support. And I think I want to kind of support in the similar way that Xano does, so that we kind of have a little bit of feature parity there. That if you're using the Xano client, it's similar for the Xo client. Yeah, so I'm going to start looking into that. But if anybody has any great resources on this, please send them my way, because I would love to like start a step up from where I am right now,
Right.
and with something that people can vouch for, because there's a lot of like article. I found like a little bit of resources here and there, but I don't really know if I can like trust the author behind the article or behind the resource. It feels very much like this worked for me, but then it's like, is it actually, a solid pattern? Is it actually how it's
And
supposed
is
to
it
work?
still working? Right. This
And is it
article is
still,
from
yeah,
last
because a
year.
lot
Is
of
it
these are
still like?
really old.
Yeah. I know the feeling.
Yeah, because you have a script out there as well. Yeah.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And I'm still not exactly sure what we're doing there.
No, because it's
um,
one of those things where it's like a little bit set it and forget it, especially for a script like yours. And I reached out to the Fathom guys, Jack, because I know them a little bit, and I tagged him on Twitter and was like, "How do you do things?" And they were like, "Yeah, we just like build the script and then we push it up, and there's like no automation, there's nothing happening because it's like the use case is kind of small." Um,
right. Yeah.
yeah, and then I mean, we have a larger script in Outseta, but we don't support the npm approach. Like we only have the script version because this was made for Webflow and Squarespace and all of those types of
Right.
scenarios. But I'm guessing like in the future we'll have to look at supporting more of the npm, at least because the Outseta embeds are React under the hood. So I would like to be able to expose them as React components that people could import, at least in their React projects.
Right.
And there are some things happening now where you can use the React component in Vue, because you can like convert it to a web component. There are like people working on more like interoperability. So it could be good to have them as at least as some sort of component. So I'm
Right.
gonna head down this rabbit hole and see
Right.
what I can find.
Do you think there's a place for like, I don't know, it feels like this problem of like exchanging one token for the other is like, and it's a common theme, right? We talked about this with Xano, and I think you mentioned this with a couple of other tools as well in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like this is something that you as Outsider could just like either offer as like a core service of the platform itself, or at least have like a separate thingy that just like a separate service that does nothing else but exchange one token for the other?
Yeah, so interestingly, Clerk has this kind of approach. A Clerk is authentication service and
Right.
React components. I think, do they have like a script version? I don't know, but Clerk, they have this approach where you can ask for a differently formatted JWT, like a JOT.
Right. Yeah.
So you can set up templates. So in their system, you could set up templates for different services, and then you can add your signing key there into Clerk. So then when you log in with Clerk, you could say like, Clerk get Supabase access token.
Right.
Supabase is one of the ones that they offer.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then they kind of own it, and then at least the service you're trying to integrate with needs to give you you need to be able to get access to that signing token. so that
but I guess
yeah,
that's always true, right? Like
yeah,
you'd still have to hook it up or whatever, but at
yeah.
least,
So I
because
kind
it
of like
sounds like
that.
right now it sounds like people would have to host their own thingy somewhere
Hmm.
that like still needs the tokens but also needs to do the conversion and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And it sounds like this could be like, again, like either it's directly built into the product, but then it's like it's
it
your
could be its own service.
responsibility.
Benedict.
But
We
I'm
should
like,
make that, Benedict. We'll just
yeah,
make a service for exchanging
I don't
tokens.
think the two of us should make it, but I could see this being a good thing, like an open source project supported by Outseta, where it's like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
open source on GitHub,
yeah,
and you maybe even run it somewhere, but people could contribute their own,
yeah. Hmm.
like their own exchange scripts or whatever,
Yeah. The
and
challenge is there are like a
something
little
like
bit
that.
of there are like with some services, because this is the thing, they all have their like little differences.
Right, it's
um
always a little bit
yeah, so
strange,
I'm
right?
gonna
Yeah,
test. I've been thinking about testing clerks to make ours, so that if you use clerk as your authentication, you could use Outseta for everything else, because we had a customer that wanted to do that, or
right.
a person reaching out. So I was thinking about testing their kind of JWT template thing that they have, to see like how it actually works. But for Superbase, it could work. Yes, maybe for Superbase it could work, and then for Xano, um, but the interesting thing with both Superbase and Xano is that they are backends, so they have endpoints already. So what we've kind of done, or what Xano has done in Xano, is that they've created that exchange endpoint. Uh, so that
For
is like
Outseta specifically,
for
or
Outseta specifically. So
yeah,
you kind of just do a click, I want this endpoint, and then when you use my new XO client, this will happen behind the
right.
scenes. Because even if we set up a service like you're saying, you would still have to do that call. And for people to kind of just grasp that you have to exchange a token, like that's an educational issue.
Sure, yeah. I mean, yeah, like any sort of native integration is always going to be
Yeah,
better for sure,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like for the stuff where there isn't anything, I think, or like where there is no native integration, a service that at
Hmm.
least frees you from having to set up like a server running somewhere to do
Yeah,
this stuff, would probably be helpful. I don't know.
yeah. No, I do think so, because there are other services where, it's not really a backend. You just use, you it's like a client token. And there's no, like, we don't have a backend, they don't have a backend, but you need to exchange a token anyway. And then you have to spin up some sort of like serverless function to do that exchange.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's useful. Uh, but the thing is, I don't know if I want to own this. But I do like the idea though. Um, and I'm
I mean,
gonna
that's
test
that's what
out.
I'm saying. Like, I don't think
Yeah.
it makes sense for either you or me to own this personally, but I think it could make sense for Outseta.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
open sourcing it would allow you, like, if you build this into the Outseta platform itself, then it's hard to, like, you have to maintain it, you have to write all the
Hmm.
scripts yourself and
Hmm.
everything. But if
Yeah.
you figure out a way to make it like a thing that's in between Outseta and everything else and open source,
Hmm.
you could approach, I don't know, Superbase, Xeno, whatever other platform, and be like, here's the thing, if you want to write a connector, here's our API
Hmm.
doc, use
Hmm.
yours, write this
Hmm.
little one file
Hmm.
script that takes one token and returns the other.
Because most
And
of it is just transforming the data. It's like, and
exactly,
then
right,
signing it with a new key. It's like, oh, so Superbase expects there to be something called role, and then
yeah,
Sano expects there to be something called extras. And then it's all about like just what people are expecting, and not
just
like a
taking
technical issue.
one, deserializing it, taking some data, putting in the other, building it again, signing it with their secret, and returning it. Like, that's like
Hmm.
the simple case, and I think the more complicated case would be taking one token, extracting something, doing an API call, fetching a token or something like
Hmm.
that, and then returning that.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it, but it sounds like a good idea.
And I do like I was very impressed by kind of like Clerk's thinking there, where they have these templates and you can essentially build out. So they have like a super base template. You just click that and you kind of get that
Yeah.
template filled out. But then you, as far as I've understood, at least you can like build out your own template in like a no code way, where you drag in tokens and then you say what you want, where do you want to get the info from, or the other way around, I guess. You write the key and then you can drag in Clerk tokens where you want the Clerk information to be, so that you can integrate with something else. So it's absolutely interesting, but it's also just like super interesting educational wise, where we do get questions a lot where it's like, well, can't you just sync the passwords? Like, that was
Yeah.
the request from the Clerk user. It was like, we have people in Clerk, we want to log in through your sign up embeds. And it's like, well, that those are connected to our database, like with our passwords, and like there's no way where we can know what the passwords are from, like, and also that's not how it's done, right? This is not how
Yeah,
we do
like
it.
this is stuff like when you're like, where you have to tell them, like, if that were possible, everyone would be in deep
Yeah. But
problems,
then you
right?
could say, like, you mean we could have added, like, so we could, the other way around, like, we could have, like, we have Google, so we could have had Clerk and everyone else's kind of Facebook, Twitter, like social logins, just that,
Right.
authenticating providers. We could do it that way, and then it would work because they want to use our form. It's a whole thing. But it's interesting to understand what people are trying sometimes. And sometimes you're like, but don't. And they're like, well, we'll go somewhere else then. It's like, no, don't.
Yeah, just don't do it.
No, don't do it. Like, don't hijack a pass, like send it. No, like, don't do that. Keep
Yeah,
away
yeah.
from.
That brings me to a thing we shipped last week. So I've been working on improving conditions in Userlist, like the condition builder and stuff like that. I feel like it's an ongoing topic. I keep talking about this every single episode now. Anyways, not directly related to the company trigger stuff we're doing, but because it's the same data structure and everything, yeah, somewhat related. Anyways, I've been working on improvements there, and last week finally got it to a point where both the front end and the back end are able to basically infinitely nest stuff within each other. So we, for example, we have user filters, and we can filter on user belongs to a company. And it used to be that then on that level, you can only filter by company properties. So user belongs to a company where the company's payment plan is paid, whatever, like pro, stuff like that. And with the changes I made last week, you can now do stuff like user belongs to a company where the company belongs to a segment that's called trialing companies, for example. But what that essentially means, because a company segment then is a condition like a company where the company property plan name is pro and has a user that has something, so on, and on and on and on and on. It basically means that you can build very, very complicated set of like conditions that are like referencing themselves, and like you can basically make a big mess now. And I'm not sure it was a good idea to launch this, but we decided to give it a
See how bad
try.
it could go.
Yes, because I was like in it's a very powerful tool and super useful for some use cases. For example, you can now send a broadcast to every user who belongs to a trialing company or something like that. That
Yeah, that's
wasn't
cool.
It was a little bit more complicated to do previously, because now you can just reference the segment, and previously you had to recreate the segment basically. But on the flip side, it also means that people can do some crazy stuff. And the thing, how I presented this challenge was, I had a screenshot of a condition with user belongs to a company that belongs to a segment, and one with user belongs to a company that has users that belong to a company that belong to users that belong to a company, because it's essentially the same thing. You could do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And Jane agreed that the infinitely nested thing was a bad idea, but the other thing was a great idea. And I was like,
But it's the same thing.
But it's kind of the same thing. So, but anyways, we decided to give it a try and see what happens, because it is, if you use it right, it's useful, but I'm a little bit worried about what people might do with it.
Yeah. But it is an interesting thing where you at any point could kind of make it less open by changing the UI, and people's old things could still work. Like you could still let it work in the whatever has already been saved, and the backend could still support it, but you can kind of like narrow the focus a little bit through the UI. And then maybe if you ever have a API for that, like you could open it again, because I mean, some developers obviously, but like you would think that if you know how to write code, you can like think more logically through circular dependencies and things that could happen there.
Yeah, but maybe not.
But maybe not. I was just catching myself. I was like, yeah, maybe not. And also we have, again, like I got the support ticket where it's like, this is not working. And I was like, but I was like, was this in our documentation? Because the thing is, and this is on us though, where it's not documented, and then they ask ChatGTP, I am pretty sure. And it was not even like remotely correct.
Yeah.
But
that's a problem as well.
Yeah, very confident users who are like, why is this not working? And it's like, well, it's because it's not.
Well, maybe ask ChatGPT why it's not working. And ChatGPT is, yes, this is not working because the team at Userlist is a bunch of morons.
No, we're getting more and more, like I can see more and more people using that kind of stuff to understand how to do more complex things, usually within like a Zapier automation, some kind of automation where you can do where you can always like go, or not default, you can do an HTTP call. Like, you know, we have, for instance, we have a Make app and we have a Zapier app, but it's not complete, right? So sometimes you need to make API calls if you want to do what you want to do, or to be able to do what you want to do. And then I can see where they're then asking, you know, ChatGPT and something like that, and it's not working because it's not correct.
Right.
And so it's like super powerful, but also but also I was like, is this in their documentation? Because it looked very documentation-y. So I was like, if so, I need to go fix it. And he was like, no, it was not in your documentation. I was like, okay, that's at least good. Maybe we need to document it so ChatGPT knows how to answer your question.
Right. Yeah. Maybe have maybe we should start like having like instead of just like having a documentation about how stuff works, have a list of things that don't work whatsoever.
Yeah.
So just so the AIs will pick up on it and not try to convince people that this is in theory possible, because A is possible by reasoning, B should be possible as well, where it's not necessarily the case, right?
Yeah, maybe we did this in the olden days for like Google, where we had little tags that we would hide that would only show to Google or to like search engines, and then they got smarter and they stopped paying attention to the stuff we hid and only tried to show to search engines. But it would be nice if you could have like a little like AI extra where it's like, do not or like don't answer.
Yes, yeah.
Like, this is alpha. Please don't take it as gospel, or things like that. But I have had help by ChatGPT, both to make my XO client and to because I was just like, I had to like scaffold out a whole like client thing with some event emitters, and I was like, ChatGPT, hello, and that worked really well. Some errors obviously in how it communicated with both Xano and Outseta, but like the like vanilla JavaScript of it was really good, so I could just go in and do a little bit of changes. So that was nice. And then also, I've had the joy of increasing all of We's prices because of we have in our contracts that we can increase the price every year, matching the consumer index. Consumer index, isn't that what it's called? Price index, consumer price index. And we haven't done that yet this year, and that is a pain. And I realized how good Outseta is, because in Outseta I could have just gone in to all the plans and just changed the price, and people would start being charged the new price for the plan that they're on. But in Stripe, you have to create, and you know this, but I'm just going to say it anyway, you have to create a new price for every product, and then manually, or with a script, but I call that manually, move everybody from the old price to the new price. And we want to do this from December 1st. And I mean, now it's almost December 1st, but I was working on this last week, and we don't want to upgrade anyone, any invoices going out before December 1st. So then in Stripe, you have to use the new plan or subscription schedule feature. So you say, okay, I want to create a schedule, and there you have to have the current schedule, and then you have to put the new schedule in there that then takes effect from December 1st. It was a whole thing. ChatGPT and I were on good terms for most of this.
Figuring it out? Okay.
We were figuring it out, but ChatGPT did not have a good grasp on subscription schedules. So I had to read the documentation myself and actually write most of that myself. But
right.
It was still nice to have somebody to go back and forth with. But what a pain. Like Stripe, I understand under the hood that they need to have like different price IDs, but like, could they not in their UI have let us be like, this price is going to be this price from December 1st? That would have been awesome.
Yeah, at least have a way to like even duplicate with like a button where you can click it and say like, this is like 5% more from this date or something like that, and migrate everyone over. That would be useful for sure.
Yeah. But I guess that is part of what makes Outseta and services like ours interesting for people, because then you can do those things without having to like recreate all the prices, because we do our invoices, we do all the calculations, and then we send, or Outseta sends invoices through Stripe. So we don't use the like product and price IDs, so we can just send an invoice for whatever we want.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I kind of get why they're doing it like they're doing it, but also it's not super convenient for you as an end user. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, totally get it.
Then I was chatting with somebody on Blue Skies, like maybe just use usage-based pricing, and then you can just increase just call the usage by like consumer price index, and then every year just like
yeah, that will work as well, I guess.
It'll be like, it's 150 NOK more this year.
I had an interesting interaction with GitHub Copilot in VS Code, kind of inspired by a tweet by Derek Reimer of Savical. And he mentioned that he's been using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever to modify SVGs. And I gave it a try because I was building a new feature for Userlist, where you can basically, it was a new UI component for our theme settings where you can adjust padding and stuff like that. And I was like, we're using Font Awesome for most of our icons, but for this, there were no icons. So I was taking a couple of icons that were useful and like working correctly, and asked ChatGPT, or basically Copilot, which I think is under the hood is ChatGPT, to just remove a line from the icon, the top line, the bottom line, and stuff like that. And it
Yeah.
got it wrong the
Ooh.
first try, but then I described what the image is looking like or the icon is looking like, and then asking it to remove the top line, the bottom line, and stuff like that. And it just did it, and it worked. It was super easy. I
That
didn't
is
have to
actually
open any vector editing file and import, export, convert, whatever. Just select all. I think it's Command I in VS Code. Enter the command. It did it. I saved it. Done.
yeah.
That was pretty impressive.
I mean, for like the really boring stuff, it's getting very good.
Yes, for sure.
It was
Yeah.
it was the same thing. Like I made a because I decided not to make all of the new prices with the script because it was like 22 prices. We have a little too many prices, but that's another discussion. Um, so I just did that manually, and then I had an or a Google sheet where I had the new price, old price, and then I needed to make that into an object for the code and those kinds of
Mhm.
things. It just like I just copy pasted it in and be like, make me an object, boom, an object.
Yeah, it's
That's
very
my.
nice for stuff like that.
It's very nice for stuff like that. But I'm really, really, really happy that I'm at this level before not before getting it, but I'm at this level when using it because there are so many little things that I think would be hard to spot for me just like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe like at least 10 years ago, where it looks so convincingly right that I wouldn't have realized that it was wrong and that it needed fixing.
Right.
Um, or just like the knowledge of, okay, it is not working correctly. It's probably this thing. Let me check the documentation. And then, yeah, it's, that was it. Um, and I feel like if you're starting out, and that's what we're seeing in support too, it's like it gets very confusing. Because
Mhm.
often you get maybe a little too much code too. And you just run it and then it's like, well, you don't know where to start debugging it, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I had a run had a positive example. Now I have a negative example. I recently had a run in with this as well, where I was relying on like VS Code, like Copilot autocomplete stuff in some of our tests, and it confidently generated some tests with like some test data and stuff like that. And at first glance, it looked correct because everything made sense, everything
mhm,
was named correctly, structure was right, tests looked right, and everything. But the test failed and kept failing, and I tried to figure out what was going on. It's a manual testing, was fine, like could not figure it out until I don't know, 2 hours in, I figured out that one of the event names that were in the data test structure were like, I don't know, it came up with something like job completed, and in the code it was job finished or something like that, right?
mm.
Where it's like, unless you compare them side to side, you would not know this is different. And yeah, took was 2 hours. Like previously, I would maybe have like copy pasted the event name from the actual code to the test, or vice versa. This time, I relied on like Copilot just doing the right thing, and it didn't. And it took me quite a while to find it.
Oh, this reminds me of my first real coding experience, and I might have talked about it before, but I'm gonna tell the story again. I was making an image carousel for the theater, like Christmas theater production at my high school, and and I actually wrote this based on a book that I now still have, which was like an introduction to JavaScript or something like that. I'll find the book,
Hmm.
and it just didn't work. It kept failing and failing. I ended up like writing it out on paper, like going through the logic. I looked at the book again. I got my mom, who was a developer at the time and who had actually bought this book. She was taking like a web course to kind of, learn more about the web stuff. And we looked
Right.
through it and we like couldn't figure it out. And this was not 2 hours. This was probably like 2 days. And in the end, I had spelled height wrong one place.
Yeah. It's always stuff like this, right? It's like ridiculous stuff like that.
But
It
it's
reminds
all,
me,
but it did teach me though. Like I still to this day, if something is wrong and I don't understand, like if I
yeah,
can't like understand what is wrong, I copy paste variables all the way down, or I like do like a control
a
find to see if it
search,
actually
right? Yeah,
finds
yeah,
everyone, or like I do
yeah,
these like basic things just to make sure that it's not like my dyslexia like messing this up, but
right,
it's actually, I mean, you don't have to be dyslexic to do these errors, but I've done them so many times after this one first like crucial incident that I never think that like, oh, I got that part right. Like I never expect that. I like always double check that before I go
right.
into further debugging. But yeah.
Fun, yeah. Yeah, like now that we're like talking about horror stories with debugging code, another thing happened recently. I was working on our website, the marketing website for Userlist, and it's built on a static site generator. I think it's using ES to build JavaScript and style sheets and stuff like that. And when you run it in development mode, it's just like this watch server where it just recompiles whenever you save a file. And I was working on a change, and it was super weird. Like I saved the file, and it would compile, but then throw a bunch of errors of like I was referencing icons on the disk, and it was always complaining that the files are not present on the disk. And it was only happening with WebP files. Like, so the thing I was trying to do basically was converting larger PNGs to smaller WebP files. It just did not work. I could try whatever I was trying to do, like, but it was always complaining. Um, and the file was right next to the PNG. Everything was fine. I could not figure it out. I was banging my head against this. I was like suspecting bugs in the ES build, like on Googling for this, like going through the code of ES build, even trying to figure out why it would not recognize the WebP file. And asked Copilot and everyone, asked friends on Slack for advice, and nothing made sense. Nothing made sense until I realized that whenever I saved it, ESBuild was compiling the file 3 times instead of once, and I was like, what? That's weird. And then the only thing I could think of was rebooting my computer. I rebooted my computer. Everything was fine. Everything was fixed. Everything was working like it should. And just by rebooting. And I still don't know what exactly was messed up, but I guess these file watching services sometimes get choked up on themselves, or it's like maybe it's
Yeah.
a Mac OS bug even. I don't know. But like several hours of like banging my head against this was fixed by just rebooting the computer. And at this point, like I guess that's the learning from this over time. Is like, I mean, as a junior developer, like when you're just starting out, like I feel like you're always like erring on the side of like the framework's wrong, like the documentation is wrong. Like it's always someone else, right? It's definitely
Mm.
not you. So that's like when you're starting out, you're blaming everyone else. But as you get older and like get more experience, you're starting to realize that 99% of the time the error is on you. Then
Hmm.
you're starting to blame yourself. But I guess it took me like 25 years or something like that to eventually like have this point where like, okay, it can't be me. It's not the framework. It has to be like something's fundamentally messed up. The only thing you can do is just like unplug everything, reboot everything, and start from a clean slate. And yeah, sometimes that works as well.
Yeah, it is hard because you start blaming yourself because that's like part, like you said, it's that part of the process where like, well, it's probably something I misunderstood, or because
Yeah,
you're starting to realize that maybe you missed something in the documentation. But then sometimes it's not you, it is them, it's the computer, it's the documentation, it's ChatGPT, and knowing when it's one or the other is super hard. That's like
yeah,
the art of it. But we're going along now. But I also have another horror story. I was at university doing a class that I was not excelling at, which was image um bildeteknikk, image technology, I think it was called. We did like C programming where we took images and made them into grayscale, or like we did all kinds of things with images, but we like did it with C, like changing pixel by pixel, things
Right.
that you
That's the
usually
same
don't
thing in
do.
Java.
Yeah, where you don't use things you don't usually do anymore about yourself. And as I did in university, I sometimes stayed a night or like worked late into the night, and I had this thing like almost done. I just had like a couple of finishing touches, and then everything just stopped working. Or I was getting like random errors, kind of like you're saying, like there was just like these weird errors, and at this point I was like, it was me, because like this class I was like not jiving with C plus plus. I think it was just C. We had to make pointers and release
Yeah,
pointers. So
yeah.
I was like, this is me. Like I don't fully grasp this. I still don't fully grasp it. And things just started randomly failing. And then in the end, I sat like working on it. Like I realized I just need to go sleep, and I did. I came back the next day, like, then everything was in shambles because I'd been trying to fix it. So like, I had to then go
Yes.
back. This was before Git even. So I had to go
Yep.
back to like, and then suddenly things were like working. But I was like, that's pretty much what I had. Like, I'm certain this is what I had when things started not working. Like, why? I'm like, what am I missing? And then I kept working through the night again, and it happened again. And I was like, but this is the same time as last night. And that's when I realized they were doing backups or something on the system at 1 at night. And that messed with like my image or my memory or like something.
Yep.
So I stopped working in the computer lab at 1 in the morning, because sometime between midnight and like 1 in the morning, things were happening on that
It's
system
just weird
that I
stuff
did
was
not
happening.
control. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Well, I remember working at a company where a lot of tests related to times and dates and stuff like that, and usually it wasn't a problem. But one day we were like trying to fix a work in production, and basically trying a lot of things, staying up late at night, and eventually we realized that our test suite was not passing at all at midnight or like around midnight because of like time zone issues and stuff like that, because like the test cases would like assume it's the middle of the day, but it was like midnight, and therefore like an hour ago is not on the same day as an hour from now and stuff like that. And then we were like without any tests for the remainder of those, like that they took 2 hours or whatever, how long it took to do this. So yeah,
That's when you have to
it
write
was
that, like,
interesting.
that comment. It's like, these tests only run correctly midday Central European time.
Yep, something like that. I think we eventually fixed it because I mean, this is a known problem, right? So there are ways around it, but like that wasn't an option in the middle of the night while fixing a projection issue. So yeah, that was not a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was doing midnight automations for Wii, um, and because I was trying to like just get everything in sync, because things were not in sync between like Stripe and our Airtable backend and stuff like that. So I just like did overkill, where like every night I do like a full sync. Turns out that Airtable API don't have like a very high allowed rate limit. So this poor
Yeah.
person trying to book a bike at like 2:30 in the morning. Are you booking bikes 2:30 in the morning? Was not allowed because of rate limiting issues. So
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
doing that anymore. But fun stuff. Fun stuff.
for sure.
Yeah. This turned out to be a long one. We need to chop it up into like a regular one and then like a bonus
And
debugging horror
debugging
bonus.
horror stories. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think we should just cut it short short, like just stop here. I in theory still have some updates, but I think they will be good. for next week or like the next recording as well. So thanks for listening to our debugging horror stories, and talk to you on the interwebs.
See you around.